Okay, thanks Alan and Zhao. It's a tough one after this, but I have to blame you guys that you didn't do that like 18 months ago, right? So I could pick up each and everything you said, but I already made my day because I ended up on the slide, an Alan's slide with the guys with long hair. So my day is already a good day, right? So, and Zhao, I enjoyed your last talk as well. Like that was very good as well. So that you should have swapped it, having what you did today to me 18 months ago. Yeah. That would have been very interesting. So I'm not going to solve my wife's problem, and I still have my house, right? That's good news, I'd say. But, and it is on A2P. So it's funny that Alan said a couple of times that A2P market is over-evaluated. In general, I'm going to give you a short story. It's not a sales pitch or something. A short story about something we did the last 1.5 years, and not because we're bored to death and we have too many developers. I was the guy with the 2 hands, right? So finding good developers is basically a pain. And actually go to Portugal. So what did we do the last 18 months? It's I'm running a business where we actually develop software for money. So we make good money out of this. And sometimes there are ideas, right, where we actually try to say, okay, let's do something which we think is meaningful. And then we created a company. It's called AWA. It's one of the sponsors, right, on the list. And we started to develop a product. What is it all about? This is, can you see that? This is one of our first scriptings. I found it like just for this presentation. So we thought it would be a good idea to provide something to the users of CPaaS platforms, because the usual CPaaS platforms are to the developers, and that's where we actually know a lot, because this is what we've done the last decade, to be honest. To use these platforms, exposing REST APIs with services in the background, right? And as a developer, and Zhao said it exactly the same way I think about it. Let's say the usual suspect developer who's using a REST API, sending an SMS or whatever, it's provided by the platforms, does not know about how it actually works, right? You read the documentation of a REST API and you know exactly which endpoint you use and do whatever. Look up something, execute something, etc. And we thought that there were like a lot of our clients actually from the other business, right? They were exactly in that point. They made a decision to use, let's say Twilio, it's so easy to say Twilio, but any of those, right? Some years ago, then they were scaling the business, and they were actually ended up with the one provider they picked at the beginning. And for them, it was really difficult to get away from it. And then they found out after scaling it, right? Like, let's say there's this very small Berlin-based delivery company, food delivery company, sending like 500 million SMS every year with each and every delivery. And they ended up with Twilio and saying, fucking hell, it's a black box, right? It costs me, my investor is actually attacking me because I spend so much money on Twilio. And so at the beginning it was really easy because Twilio is the perfect solution, well documented, they just do everything you need. And off you go. And from that situation, having clients that actually ran into problems after they were scaling a business with a CPaaS provider, right? That they could not influence anything on it, right? They were stuck with the feature set. They could actually choose another provider. That was the option, right? They could say, okay, I go to wherever I am at the moment and negotiate with them. But they would maybe negotiate on the price tag, but they would not negotiate on the feature level. And now, sending an SMS, that would be, for instance, for a delivery, right? If the SMS would not arrive, it's not a very good thing. But if you have spent $10 on getting a new client, downloading your app, and then have the second factor authentication with an SMS, and the SMS would not arrive, you actually wasted $10 on that person because you never get that client back. So it's not just sending SMS, right? So. And this is just one example. So what the first idea was, let's actually have some piece of software on top of all these providers, where we give on the standard features that they all provide, right? We give additional feature to the users saying, okay, you started with Twilio, you can stick with Twilio whenever there is another better way to send that SMS, whether it's a two-factor authentication or a delivery or whatever, right? Then it's not just the price, but the price is of course first, right? And the second would be, oh, do I get confirmation that the SMS is delivered? And then suddenly it's not good enough to know how the REST API feature works, right? And use the endpoint. You need to know how SMS are sent, right? And that is just a very small number of people really knowing about this, how it works. So we said, okay, it would be great not just to get the cheapest for each and every SMS, but for instance to say, oh, for that SMS, I need proven delivery. And then you need to know how SMS works, right? So so we thought it was a good idea to have something on top, integrate all the providers of sending SMS, and have additional features. That was the first idea. Start with SMS and then do other things afterwards. So we focused on one of the problems, which was not my wife, but the client, where we actually have very good connections to the CDO, and so basically it's almost wife, right, situation. So that was the very first. Then, well, what you do, you come up with like real pictures, set up a team. We have access to developers because we develop for money, so basically that wasn't that bad, and they you know the guys. So what we did was basically we had some piece of software that integrated, just the example, the list is longer actually, companies that actually send SMS, right? Via REST and via SMTP, so not just the API game, but as well some of the infrastructure provider that do via SMTP, right? So we embraced them as many as we could in an easy way, and we actually have a Twilio compatible REST interface. So for all Twilio users, good news, there would be transparency and you could just go on using it. We even added a feature where you could actually come with your Twilio account. You can actually try it on the website. Please don't go to the website. It's an awful website, but you can try it on the website. And so you can go there, take your credentials, and try out like sending some SMS, just even in simulation mode, and compare the prices, right? So we have a transparent proxy feature where you can actually take your account and try whether it would be better to go with each and every SMS you send, and then make a decision on our platform which would be the best way. And not just on the pricing, as well on the other potential preferences you have, right? So this is what we did. We started beginning of 2021. There's pandemics, and we thought it was a good idea, and we developed it, right? So this is what you can find on the website as well. This is part of the endpoints. There are some you don't even have to have an account, so you can use them in an anonymous way. And then there is some more, so we can do least cost price. From the price perspective, this is the actual integrated. It does not have the names of the people, of the companies with the SMTP trunks, but that's still disclosed. But nevertheless, it's user suspect. It's still the old names. Many of them have new owners, as we saw on the list. So what we did was basically we developed like 6, 7, 8 months. Had the platform up and running on AWS basically. Have some anonymous stuff. We did TEDx last year.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You remember, right?
Yep.
So basically that's a short description. You send around the thing. You find the Swagger files of all the endpoints in the internet. And basically what we wanted to do is put some piece of software on top of the usual suspects, take one use case, which is SMS, right, A to P, and have a preference set up that you not just go and have the least cost, which you get from Bix and the others too, because they're aggregators, right? They have their own, but it's a black box. You don't see it, right? We have it transparent, so you can see why this is expensive or not so expensive. And actually, we added, apart from the least cost, we added preferences like number of hops. The best quality of sending an SMS is that you would send it via the actual provider that sends it to the SIM card that owns the SIM card, right? So, and that's what we call the number of hops. With aggregators, that it gets blurry, let's say that way, and they mix the prices. And the people who know it here in the room, I guess there's some how this works, right? You never know how your SMS is delivered. So if you know the market, then we try to optimize internally the number of hops. So if the preference is not the price is always a preference, but if the preference is first quality and then price, then we try to go the way that it may be a little more expensive, but minimizes the number of hops you actually need to get to the company that actually delivers the SMS, right? So this is what we've done, because we can. That's basically a strange motivation, but it's, as a matter of fact, you talked about the A2P. We had some wife situations, setups, where we saw that there were issues and we thought it was a good idea. That already has a lot of features up here. I don't go, at the end of the day, it's about sending SMS, right? So kind of boring thing, but it has a lot of features before that. And this was the TEDx. We actually, there was some guys creating, it's a simulation API, so you don't really send the SMS, but you simulate sending the SMS and look into our database and get all the prices. And this was East Coast. So we had the list of providers, then they generated two different sets of, I think it was 10,000 and 1,000 numbers, right? On a, I think it was Europe, as far as I remember. So European numbers from different countries and different providers, and then they simulated sending the SMS to these things. And this was our choice of, this was the price that came up at the end of the day. With each and every SMS you send, look up the cheapest provider and send it through the cheapest provider, right? I guess this is what aggregators and others do anyways internally, but of course they would not expose this to their clients because that's the business model, right? So you see here that this was sending via AWA, and there was a Deutsche Telekom at that time because was, I think, sponsors of the, Sebastian, was that? The sponsors, right? Sponsors. That's one of the SMPP trunks, which are disclosed. I have them, I'm sorry, I hope that's okay.
That's okay, we did it.
We did it for the hackathon actually, not on permanent level. So basically that was proving that it was basically the cheapest way, right? Which you can understand because every time you send the SMS, you look up the cheapest and send it this way. And then of course, even if you have a very good deal with one of the providers, you always have a cheaper version if you have access to all the providers, right? But the user would not know. And then we added a billing part as well, that we could actually have a bill showing how the price actually came up and which way it was sent. And the second step was that you could bring your own provider account, sign up with that. If you haven't got it in the list, we would integrate it and then just use your account. And whenever your account is best, you just go with your account. And when there is a better one, go the other way, right? So that was the idea. And now the last part of the story is, I'm in time, right?
Yeah, okay.
I'm perfect.
Yep, 5 minutes.
That's the first time I'm in time. So what we actually from the beginning we're thinking about, okay, now just because we can, is I guess it's in all the books you actually had on your list, right? They say don't do that, right? don't. Keep your house, stay married, and solve other people's problems. But so we, from the beginning, actually, we're trying not to be stupid, saying, okay, just assume we can do this because we do it for our clients all the time. So we assumed, okay, we can do it, right? But the second question was that if we have it, how do we get it out there, right? So the first decision you make is like, am I going to spend that? I don't know. I think we spent like 700,000 on the development, and am I going to spend that money or am I going to buy another house, right? So that's basically the simple thing. And so decided, yeah, let's do it, right? And the second was then, if we have this, would we give it as a service, like the usual suspect CPaaS, right? But we never wanted to be a CPaaS player because we were just a layer above them, right? So we were not sending SMS. Just a proxy feature that you could basically operate, right? And provide it like this. First. Second would be what we implemented then afterwards, like bring your own provider. It's like sign up, bring your own provider, and just use it as a transparent proxy, using all the time your own conditions from your own provider, and if this is not the best, go some other way, right? And the third one was, okay, we could take the whole thing. It's basically Java, microservice backend, and containers, and JavaScript frontend, REST, and then streaming technology, and some, under the hood things, but basically pretty much common. And we could actually install it on clients on sites or operated in some public or hybrid cloud, but basically operated for a specific client. For instance, that pretty much that small delivery company based in Berlin, right? So they might not want to share that infrastructure or that product with some other people that have account theirs and they just use the same thing. That they might want to have a setup, right? So we thought about this at the beginning, right, or during the development phase, and said, okay, how to do it. The only decision we made on that was basically, let's do it on, you know, the newest approach, which was containers, automated everything, that you could actually put it to any place that would support container technology and had the usual suspect, not just AWS, but other places too, right? So that was what we thought in 2021, right? Now it's 2022. And your slides were so to the point, right?
Sorry.
No, it was good. So the CPaaS, right? What everyone does, right? That model, right? That to put it on some infrastructure and operate it for many people, and it takes massive marketing, right? So I hate investors. I have to say it. I'm told for that, right? So I'm really told for that. So you're depending on them. They have an opinion on something they don't know anything about, and you gave all the good reasons, right? So bootstrapping was basically the only option. That needs massive money, and not in development, but on marketing, right? It takes time, and you have to pre-fund the operations, right? Etc. etc. So very expensive. So what we did basically, we had it on AWS, or we still have it on AWS. We operated there, but we did not even start communicating it in the marketing level, right? So. And the business model was on transaction fee. We would say, okay, we take 50% of what you save in money, which is fair, right? If you save, I don't know, 10%, then we take half of the 10%, and then everyone still is good in the end of the day, right? Or you take a transaction fee, and then we had a mixed model where we say, okay, we take what you save, and if it goes above a special amount, then it's not going to be 50% but less, right? So we thought, it's a fair share with the company that actually saves on the approach. And we were trying hard not to argue like a CPaaS provider, because we never wanted to be one, right? It's like we just wanted to be a piece of software above them. And the second was basically a little different, right? But still, but kind of operated. It was easier to market because we could go to the delivery company, to the car company that sends SMS with out of their cars on the global scale. They need to be connected in each and every continent, etc. So you could go like to specific B2B, and that's I'm with you. Go B2B, right? So there's no way of B2C, right? To be honest, we didn't even see it. So we could target specific people from the network we had, right? So that actually takes away the marketing pain. The broad, I mean, Twilio's everywhere, right? And all your other guys as well. You spend a lot of money on marketing, so we don't have that. So we said, okay, let's target specific people that we already had access to, and we knew they might have the problem. That's your. It's not your wife, but it's all your girlfriends, right? So, and. But it still needs to scale big on the business model, and because you can only take it on a transaction or on a share per saving aspect, and basically it still takes investment, right? And here and there we were not sure whether we could actually have enough money, but that was more realistic in that version. And this is what 2022 today. So this is the story now. We were basically talking to specific companies that have the problem, and it's not only the pricing or the preferences, it's as well compliance and security. Especially in Europe, many European-based companies, they have a problem to send SMS or connect phone calls via US American providers operating on public clouds owned by US American companies, right? So there is a legal setup where we have basically quite an easy pitch, because we are the guys who can integrate them all. We are a piece of software which you could deploy into some infrastructure, and suddenly you're compliant, right? So that was basically unexpected, but happened. So we did this. In 2022, we actually sold a license, right? It's still disclosed, so I can't name it, but basically we sold a license in this model, and via all the discussions and the professional services around it, we could already refund all the costs that ran into development. So I'm still having my house. And so now the question here from this bootstrapping thing is, you never know. At the beginning, you think you're smart, you do this, right? And you think you can develop it, you have an idea, you think it's solving a problem. But still, this you can know beforehand too, but then you don't know who actually shows up first and who actually spends money on it. And that's interesting now as a learning curve from it. So just because you can is usually not enough, right? And then the business and the operations model, or how you actually target a market, if there is a market for it, is especially we are very engineering driven, right, from our history. That's a very interesting thing, and then you could do the thing that, and Giles, your slides were so perfect, I could just take them and point my topics, right? That you would actually go and buy such a company, right? Because you have access to the companies with a problem. You have developers, or you have educated people, right? And then you understand the whole thing. So you can save the investment and the graveyard situation, as you call it, and maybe buy someone. So that's why I would have, that would have been good to have your presentation 18 months ago, right? So maybe it would have been cheaper. And if you like investors, you might go with investors. We don't like investors, but it puts us in a difficult situation, right? Because of course with that money, which is, you don't have to earn the money, right? So you get the money and then you spend the money, and hopefully you achieve something. But basically, if you don't like investors and all that comes with investors, not just the money, then you need to understand, you need to scale technically and with marketing, and then you need to have an approach how to deal with that. I don't have an answer to that. Apart from the fact that we are like the numbers are good, but apart from that, I don't know whether we ever gonna scale it to a size that makes it then ending up without being a sponsor on your slides, right? So that's I don't know. And so we have an extremely long backlog. So we have so many ideas, but we're too busy to now serve the clients, to be honest, even on a technical level, because what we earn good money with a good margin is to adapt it, to integrate it, to operate it, to change it, to professional services, I call it.
Yep.
And you should have answers to this before you start it. We did not. And so the question is whether it's a waste of lifetime or money or both, right? So that's the story. And thanks for, especially Jao, your slide deck was basically very much to the point.
Excellent.
Because that's just an example of what you said. Don't do it, right? Don't do it. That's it.
Thank you so much, Martin.